Automating inventory accounting. For this session, we are to automate your inventory, particularly the automation of your cost of goods sold and the automation of your ending inventory costs. So how do we compute for the automation of this? In your intermediate accounting, you have learned that your total cost of goods available for sale, total cost of goods available for sale should be placed into your COGS and to your ending inventory. But for this Excel automation, we will focus mainly into FIFO accounting and your average accounting as your cost of inventory. Remember, under FIFO and average, we still have your FIFO periodic, and then we have your FIFO perpetual. For average, we have your average periodic and average perpetual. So for your FIFO periodic and perpetual, it will give the same amount of your COGS and ending inventory. While for periodic, periodic average, this is known as your simple average. And your average perpetual is known as your weighted average. So these two leads to different amount of COGS and ending inventory. For this session, we will particularly focus ourselves into FIFO, periodic and perpetual, and average periodic. So let's start in automating your inventory. So inventory accounting, remember, we have your total cost of goods available for sale. So total cost of goods available for sale is your beginning inventory plus any of your purchases. And these items should be broken down soon into your balance sheet or your statement of financial position and your income statement. So the items we broke down out of your total cost of goods available for sale are your cost of goods sold and your ending inventory. Your cost of goods sold is placed under your income statement, and your ending inventory is placed under your balance sheet or statement of financial position. Therefore, our main problem is the automation of the amount of your cost of goods sold. Why? Why do we need to automate the amount of your cost of goods sold? Because after computing your cost of goods sold, we can easily compute your ending inventory. Ending inventory is equal to your total cost of goods available for sale less your cost of goods sold. So the question is, how do we really automate your cost of goods sold? So to automate our cost of goods sold, here are the different functions that we will use. So we have here only two functions and other basic mathematical functions to compute for the other items. So I only chose two functions here so that we can easily create our automation for your inventory. So first, your min function. Your min function will return the minimum value in a given list of arguments. From a given set of numeric values, it will return the smallest values. So you can either use different arguments or you can use numeric values. So how do we use this min function in our automation? So based on our min function, we get the minimum between the total amount of purchase or inventory units. So we get the minimum out of the purchase and inventory units versus the sold units. So whichever is lower, and then we get the value thereafter to get for the cost of goods sold. So see the relationship of our min function. Remember in FIFO, what we do is whatever is the first sale, whatever is the amount or the units sold will come from the very first units. That's why we get the minimum out of the sold units from the purchased units. And then we get the value and then the cost of goods sold. Next, we have the if function. How do we make use of your if function? If allows you to make logical comparisons between a value and what you expect. So here, if we already get a value based from this, it should return a value to compute for our cost of goods sold. So this if function is used on our second part of the total formula. Because what we really want to do here is, again, first get the number of units. And then once there is a number of units taken, we get the value to get for the cost of goods sold. So this here, this first portion here, we use the mean function. And the second portion, we use the if function. And also, we will make use of other basic mathematical functions such as your sum, your multiply, and your divide. So here is our requirement. So in an Excel file, we make a 3 worksheet tabs. We have your input data, FIFO, and average. So under input data, there must be an input data for purchases and sales. Under FIFO, we must have a worksheet that automatically compute for the cost of goods sold under FIFO and cost of ending inventory under FIFO. And lastly, under average, you must automatically compute for the periodic average cost of goods sold and the periodic cost of ending inventory. So how do we do that? So first, we create a table data for our inputs. So first, we need to create for our inputs. So to create our inputs, we use a table data. I created the table data with the following: purchase number, units, cost per unit, and total. And then we have your sale number and units sold for your sale data. So this is our sale data table, and then table data for your purchase. And then I have a summary. So for total units, this is the total units available for sale. We have your total cost. This is the total cost of goods available for sale. And lastly, total sold, total units sold. Okay. So your total units, of course, is the sum of your total units purchased. Next, we have your total cost. That is your total cost of goods available for sale. And lastly, we have your total sold. That is your total sold units. So it will come from those items. After creating your inputs, we can now compute or automate our cost of goods sold. So automating inventory on the computation of FIFO cost of goods sold. So what is our problem? Our problem here is we need to get the cost of goods sold from the earliest purchase basing from the sales. Get the cost of goods sold from the earliest purchase basing from the sales. What will we use there? The mean function. We compare the purchase versus the total sold less any accounted sold. Okay? Purchase versus sold less any accounted sold. How? We compare again the purchase units to the total units sold and then getting the cost of it. If you still remember a while back in our formula, we will use mean and we will compare these items to finally get the value and to compute for our cost of goods sold. So we get from here and then the total units sold, we get the minimum, and then we get the value from this table, and we get for the cost of goods sold. So the minimum multiplied by value to get for the cost of goods sold. So here is our screen. Of course, when you open your Excel, you will see your Excel screen. I'll just maximize some items here so that you can see it. Okay, so first we need to create our input data. So I have here purchase number, and then we have here units. We have here cost per unit, and then we have here total. So after creating this, I can create a table. So to create a table, we select the data. So we select the data. I'm sorry, napunta ako sa pinakababa. Okay. So we select the data and then select at least one blank cell after, one row after, and then we go to insert, click table, and then you click my table has headers. So I have already created first table. So I will name this one purchases. Next, I will create a table for my sales. So for my sales, I have only here sale number and then units sold. Again, creating a table, select the data, and then select one row after, click insert, click table, click my table has headers, click OK. And then name this one sale. Next, we can now create our summary data. So first, we have your total units. And then we have here your total cost. And then we have your total sold. So how do we compute for your total units? Total units is equal to your total units available for your total cost is your total cost of goods available for sale. And your total sold is your total units sold. So I'll just create here a border so that at least we have uh, something to see here, or to separate the three items, and then we can also fill them with colors so that at least it would be easier for us to determine that these are our summary. Okay, now for total units, again, this is the total units available for sale. So this is the sum of the total units. As you can see, it is the sum of table 7 column units. That's what it means. Next, for total cost, again, sum of table 7 total. And total sold, that is the sum of table 8 units sold. Okay. So first, if we try to place here units, let's say 3,000 units. Let's say cost per unit is 11.3. So our problem now is it does not show total. So to compute for total, it multiplies the units to the cost. Next, purchase 2. Automatically, as you can see, there is a sequence. We have here a 0. So if you place your unit, let's say 2,550, and the cost per unit is 30, it automatically computes series. Let's input another series. Let's say 7,000 and 11, no, let's say 12.25. Another series, let's say 8,900, 9.98. Another series, 4,300, uh, 8.88. Another series, let's say 6,700, 10.45. And last, let's say 700 and no, 7,700. And the cost per unit is, let's say, 10.75. Okay. So since we already have inputs, we can also place an input here. So the first one, let's say the unit sold is 5,000. So we need to compute now the cost of goods sold. So to compute for our cost of goods sold, again, we need to get first for the units and the cost per unit, and then the total cost. So since we're using FIFO, cost of goods sold FIFO, again, what did we say? We will use mean function. So I have here mean. I will compare the first unit versus the total units sold less the sum accounted for. So sum of K5 to K5. Since we have a summary, we will make use of that summary as our fixed unit. So since we want it as a fixed unit, we will use an absolute cell reference here. That's why there is dollar. Also, since we always want to start at K5, we make use also an absolute reference here of K5. So we already got the units. And then we want to get the value of that units. So we can use the if function here. So if this one is equal to 0, then we will not place anything. But if not, we get the value, which is 11.3. Next, if, again, our logical test is, if our units is equal to 0, then we will not display anything. But if that is false, we get now the value of the units multiplied by the cost per unit. Okay, so as you can see, it shows now 3,000 coming from 11.3 and 2,000 coming from 13. How about if we make this one as 3,500 only? So as you can see, our next unit changed to 500. How about if we make this one as 3,750? The units after 3,000 should be 750. So let's see. Now it displays 750. So we already automated it. So if we place other sale here, let's say we place another sale here, 1,000, it becomes now 1,750. Let's place another sale, let's say 250, it becomes 2,000, which came from the second purchase. Okay, so it follows the concept of FIFO, as you can see. Since we're done computing for your cost of goods sold FIFO, we can now compute for your ending inventory FIFO. So how do we compute for your ending inventory? Since we can easily reference this one, We can still have your units, cost per unit, and then we have your total cost. So what we do is, again, we get from the purchase units versus the cost of goods sold units. So 3,000 here versus this one. And then we try to reference it until the end. And then we make use of an if function again. So if this is equal to 0, you display nothing. But if not, you display the price. So as you can see, since it is equal to 0, it displayed nothing. And the second one has something. That's why it displays the price. And we place that until the last one. Now for total cost, again, we use an if function here. If the units here is 0, it will display nothing. But if it has a value, we multiply the units. We multiply the units to the cost. Okay, so we autofill until the end. As you can see, it is now autofilled. And we can now get for the total amount of our ending inventory. It automated, yes. If we remove this, and this, it will show that everything is still part of our ending inventory. What if we sold 500 only? So see, from 3,000 here, less 500, what is left is 25 at 11.3. So what if we sold another, let's say, 2,100? So from 3,000, we deducted 26 now. We have 400 units left. So that is for FIFO. That is for FIFO. What if it is for weighted average or average? Average. So for average, what you need to do is to first compute for your cost per unit. Or let's say average cost per unit. So to compute for average cost per unit, that is equal to your total cost. It's equal to your total cost divided by your total units. So how do we do that? We already have computed the total cost here based on our summary. We only need to divide that to your total units. So again, basic mathematical functions. And next, we compute now for our cost of goods sold. In your cost of goods sold, this is equal to your total sold multiplied by your average cost per unit. So we get the total sold, 2,600, multiplied by our average cost per unit. We got 28,013.69. And then we can also compute for our cost of ending inventory. So ending inventory, this is equal to your total cost less cost of goods sold. So our total cost, again, is based on our summary, less your cost of goods sold. We can now compute for your ending inventory. So see, we have automated cost of goods sold FIFO, ending inventory FIFO, average cost of goods sold, and average ending inventory just by having this data. So if you want to change again units sold, let's say we place here 1,300 and then we place here 700 and we place here 2,150. As you can see, it updates everything. So everything is updated real time based on our purchases. So you can also add purchases as purchases are coming in. So if you have another purchase, you can add here again. So 8, let's say 1,300 at 11.33, you can just add. Even on the sale, you can just add anytime you want. And the data will automatically update. And that is how you automate your inventory.